ス。
みんなありがとう。ここは俺に任せてくれ。俺は死なない。約束だ。ラクアと共に生きて必ずもう一度お前たちと。
What's going on, trainers? Okay, so Pokemon Horizons episode number 32. Episode number 32 of Pokemon Horizons. And, you know, before I forget to mention these specific things, I think that this episode was awesome. We finally got a full Lucious face reveal, so that is really cool. We got to see Lapras entering the Ancient Ball, and we got to kind of learn Lucious's last words to his team, which was the fact that he wasn't going to die, and he was going to go to this place with Rayquaza. Now, obviously, something went amiss because Rayquaza is in this world now. Rayquaza ended up appearing at the end of the episode, much like, you know, the Rayquaza did a long time ago, and that ancient Pokeball that had Rayquaza in it was seemingly around for 50 plus years, because that was Roy's grandfather's ancient Pokeball that he had for quite a while. Not only thinking about Liko's grandmother, who found another, case of Lucious's stuff. So this has been existing now for a while. And Lucious, who knows exactly what happened to him? Did he get stuck in a certain world? Was he not able to travel with Rayquaza? There's so many variables and so many questions when it comes to those kinds of things here. Before I forget, though, the other thing I wanted to mention was we are seeing Terapagos slowly get his terrestrial power back. They mentioned at the end of the episode here, or towards the end of the episode, that based on the vision that they got about Lucious, it looks like a little more of Terapagos's power has come back. So what I'm trying to surmise by this is, by the time that they're able to get the whole entire team together, they currently have Moltres, they have Arboliva, they now have Lapras, right? The Rayquaza is just a little bit away. So I think once they have his 6 Pokemon back, that means, obviously they have Terapagos. So once they get the other couple of Pokemon back, including Rayquaza, I think that is going to restore Terapagos's terrestrial power, and that will allow him to then go and not evolve, but to go into his appropriate form, which is, the big turtle beard Pokemon. And who knows what's going to happen after that. Maybe he'll be able to open up a wormhole or a alternate dimension, something to then go to this paradise that Lucious was in, which is really, really interesting as well, too. The other thing that I really loved about episode number 32, outside of the contextual stuff, outside of getting us to the next step, outside of kind of moving the plot forward, outside of like all these things that this episode did, the way that they brought Lapras and stuff back into the mix and everything, outside of just doing that specifically, the other thing that I really enjoyed about this episode is the life lessons once again. As we've kind of journeyed on with Liko and the gang here, also, as we've kind of journeyed on with them, one of the things that I've always commended and I've always really held high is the fact that there's a lot of life lessons that Pokemon Horizons ends up teaching, like, very, very frequently. And one of the things I always mention about Pokemon Horizons is, at the end of the day, we are part of the core audience, but the core audience is really smaller, smaller kids, somewhere between the ages of, 3 and 18. That's really the core audience, is like, kids to preteens. Like, that's like the core audience. And then the rest of the audience is made up by people of all generations, all ages and stuff, like you, and maybe like me for sure, and then like you potentially, depending on how old you are watching this review and everything else. So one of the things I loved about this episode was it instilled, and Liko got a life lesson from Grandma. And this episode really instilled to never judge the way that somebody else is living without first thinking about your experience in their shoes. So what I mean by that is Liko was immediately judgmental of like, well, how can Lapras be doing this? How can they be stealing from people? How can they be doing? And immediately Grandma put her in her place of like, what you're not understanding is this is the way that they're surviving. Like, you can't judge them for doing these seemingly harmless things. Sure, they're stealing, merchandise, but this is how they're protecting their way of life. This is how they're living. It's either do these tasks and, lightly steal from people, but live and be able to live for a long time, or die, essentially. And I love that the life lesson here is never judge somebody before you can think about yourself in their position. And it's so true in life, too. A lot of times we come out and, you immediately judge, an act of somebody, or you judge the way somebody's living or something without really thinking of like, well, if I were in their shoes, okay, I kind of understand the reason behind they're doing X, Y, Z or whatever, right? Like it is a really cool thing to think about. And it's really a cool life lesson to instill on your viewers, to people who really don't maybe think that way naturally, especially when it comes to kids and stuff. Like the world is brand new to kids, even after you become an adult, you're still learning things, right? You're still, getting used to the world and the way it treats you and the way you treat it and things like that. So it's always an important life lesson for somebody who may have not thought about themselves, putting, having that empathy and putting themselves in somebody else's shoes. In this case, putting themselves in a Pokemon shoe and thinking of like, well, how can they continue to live and stuff like that? I think it's just such a really cool lesson here. Last thing I'll say is, wow, Lucious, huh? So one of the secret, I don't know if I conveyed this at all. I don't think I ever did, but one of the secret, what do you call it? One of the secret predictions that I had, potential predictions early on, was what if there's some time travel shenanigans going on here, like there is with Area Zero in the game, and what if Lucious is actually Liko, like in the future or something like that. Like I always thought that, and I was like, as we've moved closer and closer, that prediction has definitely gone away. I'm like, that's not the case here. And this episode really solidified that as well too. We finally saw Lucious, but I am completely convinced that Liko has to be a descendant of Lucious, or at least in the familial tree of Lucious. They look too much alike, similar hair color, similar eyes. All his Pokemon are taken to Liko, like it's there, like there's some huge tie to Liko and to Lucious specifically. Obviously, Lucious, Liko, Lucious, right? It's very similar naming as well, conventions as well too. But it's awesome to see. It is incredible to see, and it's really cool to see how his Pokemon have taken to Liko, including Terapagos, and that just means that there is some serious ties there, whether she's a great-granddaughter or great-great-granddaughter, or he's just in the family tree, like that was her uncle or great-great-great-uncle or something crazy like that. There's definitely some familial ties there. Lucius looked like a cool character. It looked exactly like I thought he would look. A little less cool, but regardless, he still looked pretty cool. And finally, definitely appreciative to finally see the first real glimpse of him as we get ever closer to kind of the ending of Lucious's story, probably in the next 20, 30 episodes or so. So regardless, let me know what you guys thought about this episode down in the comments below. I appreciate you guys being here. Of course, as always, let me know your guys' thoughts on this week's episode of Pokemon Horizons. And my friends, I'll see you guys next week for episode 33. All right. Peace out, my friends.